Thanks, Amber. Hello, everyone. One housekeeping item on my side is if you happen to hear that noise coming across the screen, that's me turning the page. I have a series of extremely valuable notes I've taken that I wanted to make sure I was able to share with you. And I may have to turn the page on this side, which could make some noise. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So for today, this is who you'll be talking to. This thing is, there it is. So this is me. I think you're familiar with me. You've probably seen me before in many other areas. But in reality, this is really me, as much as I'd like to be that other guy. But I'm John. I've been probably working in this industry now for about the last 33 years or so. And today we're going to talk about service management, which over the last, 10 to 15 years has gotten to be an extremely hot topic out there. You'll be able to ask some questions by typing them into Amber, and she may interrupt me in the middle of some sessions. If they're easy ones that I can answer quickly, I will. Otherwise, I'll try to field all of them at the end of the session as well. Sometimes, though, you may have a quick one, and it's in context of what I'm showing. So I've asked Amber to interrupt me so we can at least get you an answer on the spot for what you're looking at. We'll see how that goes. All right, off we go then. Okay, Dynamics 365, you've probably seen this slide before. Intelligent business applications in the cloud. Microsoft has an entire office and a suite, obviously, that it's promoting. You've seen a couple of other of these webinars already. Today, we're going to focus on field service, which I'm showing and circling there. And of course, in Business Central 365, we have a series of applications from CRM, the financials, the distribution, job cost, manufacturing, and of course, we're going to focus today on service management. Now, the reason the picture is there is that it's showing you the different ways you can actually access Business Central. So if I have some time, I'll show you some of the mobile portions today as well. But otherwise, what you'll notice is the screens look different from the data that they're showing based upon the device you're on. The system is responsive to the technology. That's a big technical term people like to use out there nowadays, and it just means that it will adapt to whatever device you're using on the web. Okay, so moving along then on service management. What I thought I would want to share with you is what's going on in the service industry. And, why do we care about service? Isn't it a cost center? It's not really a profit center. It's a bit of a necessary evil. We make things, we build things, we service it, then we have to service them because they broke. Usually is the reason, or somebody doesn't know how to operate it. So we have to kind of chime in with them. But there's really an interesting part of a history to service management that I thought would be important to share with you. And a lot of these, I don't know if you can remember, but of course I'm dating myself here, but I go far enough back, where you used to take your car for repairs, and you were really frowned upon as being unintelligent if you took your car to a dealership. Because you took it back to where you deal, they were going to rip you off, they were going to charge you a high price, all those things. You were always better to go to your local auto mechanic. And what happened, though, is that's changed, hasn't it? Now you do take it back to your dealer. They even send you coupons and offers to come back in, and they do very good work, and things have changed. Why did that change? What's made this different? You had all those local guys out there. Well, what changed was that the makers of these products, and I just happen to use the auto industry as one example, found that the smaller shops that were doing repairs were really usually tied to one person. You stuck with that mechanic forever. Now, if that mechanic had an opinion that says, boy, your Chrysler was poorly designed, that Chevy could have a better carburetor on it. Well, it kind of gave your car a little, a bit of a poor brand, if you will, a poor label. And that wasn't good for the auto industry. So in order to recoup that brand, and by the way, you've seen this in many other parts of the industry. Look at Sears, what they've done. If you're familiar with Empire Carpeting, they've got that fancy jingle out there that'll drive you crazy on the commercials. Empire Carpeting always was doing outsourced services. The person come in and install your carpet was never that same person who actually worked for the company. Feldco came along and started taking market share from them because they decided they would have employees that were working and carrying on that service as well. So branding has become very important, especially with the spread of the internet. And because of the spread of the internet, more people can know if you're doing a bad job just as easily as they can know if you're doing a good job. And the bad always seems to outweigh the good. So in it comes, they took all these things back. Now they took them back, and these industries took them back originally begrudgingly, and they were considering this a cost of doing business. Thus, they were a cost center. And at some point, I'm sure, having myself been an ex-accountant for 10 and a half years, I'm sure a smart accountant looked at that and says, gee, why don't we make this a revenue center? Let's make this more of a profit center. Maybe we can make some money at this stuff. And so, but what happened was managing service for the systems that were available, business systems, software systems out there that would come from companies like SAP, McCormick and Dodge, all the big players out there. They weren't geared for this. They were geared to make things, manufacture things, not service, take care of them, and look after them. But the large companies like General Motors and the rest, they could spend millions of dollars and make themselves a customized system to make those shops work, and they did. But at the end of the day, where does that leave us? Us here in the middle market, the 0 to 100 crowd, $0 to $100 million a year crowd. Well, we're kind of left to handle things on our own, and we try to. And what do we usually do? Well, we did the usual thing. First thing, we grabbed Excel and said, we're going to make Excel work for us. And then we had Excel, we had an accounting system, we had a scheduling and appointment system. All these systems were separate. Of course, we got more sophisticated. We tried to go with Microsoft Access because some of us in the office knew how to use that and maybe customize something to look like an entry screen. Once again, though, islands of information, a lot of redundant input. And what was really hurting is the response time to the customer wasn't very cohesive. So the customer, when you spoke with them or they would call in, you have to dig around, look for notes, jump through different systems. Invoicing got to be a little tedious and slow. And it was painful until this trend started coming around where the integrated full suite of application systems finally won the war, if you want to call it such, versus the best of breed applications. You hear that term all the time. We're best of breed because we use everybody else's software and we integrate it into one system for you. Well, those become very expensive, especially when you're in the cloud. And when you don't have the same developer talking to all those other systems and trying to make them all work together, it's like trying to have a meeting with 20 people and you're all talking over one another with your own agendas. Thus, one integrated system won the day. When it did win the day, companies like Crestwood decided to start watching for software systems that would be fully integrated. Front to back, would have all the componentry in it that would make some sense and work, especially for that 0 to 100 club is what I'm calling it. So today, we're going to be looking at Microsoft Business Central. They keep changing the name on me. So Microsoft 365 Business Central Service Management. And if I don't have to say that full phrase again today, that will be refreshing as well. So I'll just call it BC or 365. But in came that, and that's what we're going to look at today. So you're aware, Crestwood's been doing service management systems probably since, around 2003, 2004. So we do have 4 different systems fully integrated that handle service management. So we've been doing this a while. That's not usually the case when you look out on the street because people either manufacture or they're just selling and distributing. But we like to get in between all of those and bring a little more sanity, if you will, to all those disparate systems out there. So in the service industry, everybody's always doing a survey. They're always doing some analysis. And one of the analyses that I got involved in with Aberdeen, they published a report and they talked about what were the best in class service companies doing out there that the rest of us were not. And I've got a few pieces I gleaned out of that, took out of that. I can always talk to you more about it if ever you want to give me a call. You can do that. But here's some of the things that they noticed the best-in-class companies were doing as they started to really focus on service in their companies. So first was they established service-related KPIs aligned with business goals. Not just something out in the back of the shop that says, hey, how many contracts did we take in today? How many parts did we fix? But we actually have business goals aligned with those KPIs. Now it's tied in to the full service of the company. Also, they assigned senior level executives to oversee and manage those operations. One big thing they offered was tiered service level agreements. Not just one agreement, tier them for different styles that their customers would likely fit into, the type of equipment they use. That was really important. Also, they got into the preventative maintenance aspect of it and the predictive service model because they could look at real-time asset monitoring. They could tell if a machine had so many hours on it. Like you have a copier, you can get so many copies out of it before you get to change, the roller or something like that. And they could predict that, and that would predict service and revenue. At the same time, you want to do something preventative, something that stops it from breaking and cracking in half, like running out of oil in your car, for example, which is a bad idea. I now find out. Moving on. Also, real-time integration of customer product-specific information with your back office systems. When I talk to a customer, I want to know what they've been doing. I want them to know that everyone in the company cares about them and that we all know about them. Isn't that what we all like? We all like to be seen and made aware of and know that you know us. Also, interestingly enough, the best-in-class companies kept their service outsourcing work to less than 10%. They thought it was extremely important, as I mentioned before, because of the branding situation and the branding issue. So they had to bring more in. Well, that gave them more control, and they found that was a better product off the shelf. They also quickly adopted business intelligence to constantly review contract and customer profit. It wasn't about necessarily did I fix that one item as much as what am I doing for my customer in total? What does the total customer picture look like? You might see some of this, by the way, although it's almost hard to see sometimes, when you look at what banks have done and you go in there and they keep expanding. There was an offer I know from Chase a couple of years ago that said, you know what, we're looking at your mortgage and what you have in a savings or anything else with us as one positive number of how you participate with Chase. And they were starting to recognize that as a more holistic view of who their customer was. Same thing in the service industry here. Business intelligence is able to give them that overriding look at contracts and profit. Because I will bet if you're in the service industry today, or you were trying to do service, and I said, are you making a profit on your contract? Probably less than 80%, probably less than 20% of you would say, I think I know how, or I think I can tell you. It's not likely a lot can yet. And that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. Also, big thing was mobilizing field service data entry. Don't wait for somebody to come back with a ticket that's got grease on it, or they crumpled it up, or they forgot where they were all day. They try to fill the timeout right before they came in and clocked out. You're not getting accurate data, and you're certainly not getting it real time. And imagine if somebody goes out in the service truck and they finish early, and they're close by to another account you can get to today instead of tomorrow, or maybe fill in for someone else who couldn't make it there. They were running over on theirs. You'd want to know immediately that you have that availability to get them there. So mobilization, very important on that front. So I flipped the page, as you probably heard. That's what's going on in the service industry. These are the things that were important to them, as we found. So what are we going to look at today? We're going to talk a little bit about service management with Business Central. We're going to look at things called service items. Now, the term item is used a lot in the industry. Today, a lot of us use it as an inventory item, something tangible we count, rope, string, wire, things that we're going to measure. Service items can be something different. Service items, you'll see, can be something that is an asset owned by your customer, or perhaps you've lent it to them or leased it to them. And now you're managing that service item. It has a life of its own. It's almost like it's its own project. And you take it from cradle to grave. We'll talk about that later. Certainly, you have to be able to do quotes. Everybody wants to know what's it going to cost me before I get the service, and everybody's shopping around those quote rates. We'll talk about orders, actual service orders. Those are things where somebody's going to call and say, "Oh, my gate's broken. Can you come fix it?" Of course, there's order planning. How do I plan for these things? Just because you're doing service orders and somebody just happens to call on the phone, planning is always the best remedy if possible. As random as that can sound, when someone's calling in for service help, you still need to plan in the background because there will be trends you can follow. Just like you do an inventory replenishment. People are going to buy maybe seasonally. But remember my point prior. Preventative maintenance and predictive revenue stream and service will help you plan better as well. So you got to get out in front of that. What do we talk about all day long in dentistry today? Everybody's in there making sure you get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. You're checking those things out. They do little small things and patch them up so your teeth don't fall out. I know it's pretty grim, but in either case, I thought it'd be a good segue. Of course, we have to do dispatching. Who's going to go to do the work? Matter of fact, is it something that has to be brought into our depot, and we're going to work on it here in-house, or is it always going to be field service? What about loaners? What are people doing? Well, gee, John, my server's down. I can't do any work today. Is there any way you can drop one off for me while you go and fix mine? Or same thing happens with cars, right? We take our cars into the shop. And they're always offering loaners to us right now because it's convenient for the customer. It makes the service experience a little bit better if you don't have to sit and wait for 5 hours or 2 days or 3 days to wait for your car to come back. Of course, billing. How do we bill? We'll talk about things. You want to sell prepaid contracts. You want to sell contracts as they go. How are you going to handle warranty work? Again, talk about that, and we'll touch again on some preventative maintenance. But as you can imagine, this is a very large subject. Implementations of this are not simple. So that's something you want to make sure you take that word out of your vocabulary. This, if you're a service company, hits at the heart of your business. You are touching more than probably any other module. Manufacturing, easier in most cases to service. Because even in job costing and projects, things kind of assemble over a long period of time. Service tends to be quicker. In most cases, it can involve manufacturing. It can involve assembly. It can involve a project. It can involve a lot of aspects of your system. You must plan this carefully and don't take it lightly. Okay, that all being said, I'm going to get through the PowerPoint deck because I'm not going to come back to it. I'm not a big fan of it, but it keeps me on track. Just so you know, our next webinar, and I'm going to get into software right after this, is going to be November 1st on jobs and job costing. And then we're going to do a manufacturing webinar on Business Central November 8th. And then finally on November 15th, we're going to have if you're running Dynamics today, what should you do? What's your next move going to be? And that would end this series of webinars after that, third one after this. So give us a call or a tweet. Either way works. But for God's sakes, can we please see some software? So let me go out there and let's start looking through the software. And again, you can start sending questions through the Amber anytime you like. Okay, so out of the PowerPoint. Don't ever save that one. Whoops, that's the one. And let's go out here. Okay, so I'm going to log in, and I'm into my Microsoft Office account. This is what you would typically see. Yours may say more. This is just a demonstration system that I use. Mine has about 25 of these little icons in here. A lot of things that you may not realize that you can do with Microsoft. And sometimes we don't realize how many applications from Microsoft we also use. You'll see those all here in your palette. You can always install, explore more, and install them here right online as well. Dynamics 365, as you probably already know, also comes with Power Apps for customization, as well as Flow. which is how you would establish workflows in your system. And of course, you can always go to the App Store to get extensions. Those are add-ons to the product that are written by folks like us at Crestwood to further define and further extend the functionality of an application to make it even more particular maybe to your situation or for a particular vertical industry. So I'm going to log into 365, and we're going to get started here. A lot of people I know like to log into Outlook and start looking at Outlook and how you're going to take service requests through there, and then you're going to log them through the system. I guess my accounting background says, let me show you more of the meat and potatoes of how the system, all the things it might be able to do for you. We can always get to that cool looking stuff later. I'm sure Amber right now is cringing because out of the marketing group, they always like us to show the flashy stuff. But we'll get to that at some point. Let's just talk about what all service can encompass and what you can do. Now in Business Central, and I'm going to assume you've been on some other webinars, so I'm not going to take you through every aspect of the navigation around here. But I've logged in. Now I've logged in as a business manager, and it's telling me my name is Demo Instance, which is probably a bad name, but it's the one they gave me. So in here, I've got my control board telling me about my sales orders, self-service, reports. You've seen this before. What I'm going to do in this case, though, is I'm going to change my user. Go to my settings, and instead of a business manager this time, I'm going to be a dispatcher for customer service. And I'll log in there. And now my screen will change and my options will change. We'll give this a minute. Now you see a much simpler palette for me in this case. Above you'll see all my main menu items for contract quotes, service quotes, and the rest, and service orders. I can do quick ads with the plus sign because when you're on the phone, you never know what someone's going to want immediately. They might want to see the history on their account. They might want to take a look at any of their open quotes. Any of those things are possible. My activities below here in my queues are set up so I could see my service orders that are in process. I have 3 of them. I kept my data to a minimum here. Sometimes I think it's a little easier to follow versus giving you hundreds of things to sort through. So hopefully you'll be able to see this a little easier that way, which is a couple of examples. I have an inactive service order, which of course I always want to go take a look at. And of course I have a pending user task down here. And a task is something you do, obviously, like any other task, and you do it to a service order. It could be a task, could be multiple things, it could be one thing that you have to get done. Now I've got one pending task here. And certainly when I look at this, because I had a lack of imagination, I said, well, I have an important pre-meeting task here for today. And it was going to be, well, supposed to be in the morning. And I was supposed to bring donuts to this session. So any of you who are here in person, you can certainly pick up your donuts right up at the reception area. Amber will have those for you. But what you're going to see here is an important pre-meeting task. So I can assign it to people. I can link it to pages or reports, as well as I can prioritize that task. And I know when it was handled and who's supposed to handle it. And of course, in actions, I can go to that item task, I can mark them complete, I can set it as recurring if I need to. These are all embedded in part of service in that case. So I'm going to go back out of that and show that. So in here, I've got some contracts that are going to expire. But before I get into all of that and show you how you drill in through this stuff, let me show you what some of these options can be. And the first thing we talked about on the PowerPoint slide was going to be service items. So what's a service item? Let's take a look. Here's some service items. And I'll go to this 7333 megahertz computer in here. It's item 8, whatever the item number code is that we gave it. It has a serial number as well. And it's assigned to a customer. So a customer must have this item. And they also have a warranty starting date. Of course, this is in the future. Now, the reason I had to do this, I went in and closed all my accounting periods for 2018 by an error. And once you close a year in Business Central, you can't reopen it. Good accounting practice, bad for doing demos on service management, though. So just bear with me on that one. But so here I've got my warranty starting and ending dates. For parts, you'll notice and separate ones can be had for labor. Mine happen to be the same in here. So in here, I'm going to go look at that service item just by clicking on it. And certainly I could have, which I probably should have showed you, I could also filter on the service items and have different service panes available for what I might want to see if I want to have them classified in a certain way. So let's go back and let's look at this computer. And here's the description of it, the item number. I can put it into an item group. In this case, I put it into a desktop because it's a desktop computer versus a server. And I can even give it a special price group. In service, I can not only just do service work like labor and repair and consume inventory to fix things, but I can actually sell things while I'm out there too. So if I'm out there and I think this person needs, another, block of RAM, I could sell them that block of RAM right on the same service order I did all the work on as well. So there's no reason why you should have to do two different things. It should all be one system looking at it one way. So I could have a service group assigned. I didn't in this case, but I could add one if I wanted to. The other thing I think is very handy, by the way, in Business Central is you'll notice I have this lookup list of these codes that I set up, desktop, monitor, server. But you'll notice too, I can add a new one on the fly right from here. And I think that's important because otherwise you're going out of the system, trying to go back to another screen, then come back in again when you could do it all right at the same time, right from that same screen. Okay, so if I said this, I'll just assign this to the desktop group. The other thing you'll notice is there is no save button on the screen here. When I'm done with it, it's saved. So if I go back out of that screen and came back in again, you'll notice my service group, price group, is also desktop now. Kind of handy. Again, when you're in service especially, things can move kind of fast. Everybody wants everything yesterday. Everybody's impatient. It's probably the business of least disappointment in many cases, just because of the time involved. So you want to move quick. All right, I'm going to click on General, and that will fold that part of the screen up. I can see who my customer is, and you'll notice another handy item. You'll see these little IDs on here. The name of my customer ID, and who my primary contact is. So I don't even have to unfold it if I'm familiar with this information. But there's the customer information on here. And important is, where's the location of the service item? You may say main office. They may be the address, but they may have a limited number of places where this particular computer is. It'd be good to know if I can get to it quicker. Okay, of course, if I'm going to ship anything, where would it go to? You'll see your shipping information, and you have unlimited ship to codes that you can have for any single customer. If they had a contract, this one says this is under a service contract, this particular item. And it's this particular item because it probably has a particular serial number attached with it also that we'll see. So if there are service contracts, I could actually look it up, and sure enough, there's a prepaid hardware contract for this item. And the contract is signed. We'll see that later, that there are statuses in the system for signed, canceled, or in process, as you'll see later. Okay, so in here I've got a contract cost and the value for the instance, and they're getting any discounts. If I have to buy or replace the item, who is the vendor? I don't have a vendor in here for replacement, but I can certainly add one if need be. And what is that vendor item number? Because if I'm out on site, I'm in the field, or if I'm even in the depot, I may need to place an order for a part immediately, especially if it's not in stock. And I haven't planned for it. We're hoping we plan, but it doesn't always work out that way. And of course, more details about this particular item. What was its cost? What was its price when you bought it? These are just obviously fake numbers. You're paying a little bit more for a computer than that. And what does it come in, and when was it installed? All important items, but that's your service item. So I have an entire list of these service items and different descriptions, and of course, serial numbers in here. Serial number will be important. You certainly want to do warranty based on a serial number in most cases. Do you have to? No, it's not required. But it's usually recommended. It's nice that you have it. Okay, so those are service items. Up above with any of these and service items, I can do troubleshooting setup on an item. So if ever this comes in and I have to troubleshoot that computer, I can do a setup on this and actually give some instructions as to what I should be looking for when I'm out in the field. So it starts giving me some clues or some hints. We've heard this thing before, so take a look at this as I'm going to go through and troubleshoot on it. Again, I can look at service contracts, which we already did. Edit in Excel, I don't find to be extremely helpful here, but you can do it. And you can always add new ones here on the fly as you go through. And certainly when you navigate, it will tell you if there's any other service items like a component list. Why would I have a component list? Well, this is an item that's made up of other items. When you take your car in, your carburetor is not just a carburetor. It's made up of quite a few parts to it, right? There's an exhaust flap on the top. There's intake valves to it. There's all kinds of gizmos on these things, right? And you might want to know which part it is and what component of the item you're replacing. On a computer, there's a motherboard, there's RAM, right? There's a bus socket that goes in the back of it. Those could be components if you want to track to that level. And certainly if there's particular skills that are involved in working on this item, then those skills can also be noted under what's called resource skills. And these are in groups, and then I set up my skills code, and it'll tell me, like, I've got electrical 1 and 2 here that may be required. So later on, when I'm trying to dispatch a person and the skills are required, I can match the right person to the right service. Okay. And of course, there's reports. There's labels you can slap on items. I worked with one company who did a lot of work with IDOT, the Department of Transportation, with those big trucks that are running around on the road. And although there's a VIN number in every vehicle, they used to have to slap their own ID on about 1 foot wide and 6 inches high. They had to plaster it on the side of the vehicle, so when the vehicle came in, they could see it and scan it, and it could pull up the entire service history immediately right when the guy pulled into the garage, so they could determine what they were going to do quickly. You need to be able to print a label. Sounds silly and simple, but you'd be surprised the systems that don't allow you to do that. You're going to kind of guess as you go. All right, so going backwards. I was saying back out is what I should have said. I'm looked at my service items. Items are just inventory items. I'm not really going to cover those unless you think you want to, but you might have already covered those in inventory, so I'm not going to need to go there. Also in here, we're going to see service contract. There's quotes. Quotes on a service contract, like let's say this one. I'll look at this one. Here's a quote for this customer. It's got a contract number. It's quote type 1. I classified my quotes. What's the status of it? I didn't cancel it, so it's still open. The responsibility center is who is going to be working on this in my company. What center are they in and what items? I haven't defined a service item yet, so I must be waiting for the customer to get back to me to tell me more about exactly what it is I'm going to be doing. But you'll see here in the contract, I can determine if it's prepaid. Am I going to invoice after the service? Do I invoice up front? Is there an expiration date for the contract? Will I accept anything before it? You may say, I'll tell you what, your contract doesn't start, maybe you want to start a contract on November 1st, but if you want to bring your car in between now and then, that's okay. I'll accept anything before that, before you get there. Maybe you want to offer them as a convenience for your customer. Okay, but that's setting up a contract, and certainly the actions would be as a function. I want to go in there and file this if I want. You can put a particular file or a lock on it so no one can change the contract after it's done, only by the people who are allowed to. I can also navigate through the quote, look at comments. I can look at any service discounts, any service hours. Why would service hours be on here? This is what I quoted them. I told them it would likely be this kind of service level with these kind of line items that would go for this kind of contract. So let's go out of that one. Whoops. And let's go to this other one. And this one should be a little more complete, if I could click on it correctly. Should be a little more complete. So if I want to navigate in here on the quote, I can look at service hours for this one, and I can say, when do I service this? Or am I going to just use something like copy all the service hours, normal service hours from our service calendar, add those in, and it's telling me this is good, and is it even valid on holidays, yes or no? Maybe we're open on the holidays, but it's coming from your own calendars. And again, I don't have to save. It's in there now if I want to just move on with it. Okay, and this would be that contract. Other actions you could take, I can make this a real contract. This was a quote. I want to convert it to a real contract. Oh, I've got some dimensions used in here that are invalid. I got to check those codes. But if I didn't have that problem with the dimensions, I can go right ahead and turn this into a real contract. Down below are my line items of what I'm going to service on that contract, what I think my response time is supposed to be. I've got 24 hours to get back to them on this one, but this one's 16 hours. And I have my different line costs and line values for each of these. So I can always know where my profit is on these items. So when I'm charging it, I already know it before I get started. This is going to get serviced every 3 months. That's what the 3M means. And I have a next planned service date. We're getting preventative and predictive. That's what this is all about by putting these on a line-by-line basis. The customer could have as many of these listed as they would like to have. Also, who is going to be billed for this? You know, it doesn't have to be who you're doing the service work for. Let's say I was going to bill someone, maybe a leasing company, or I don't know, somebody's carrying the paper for me that they're going to pay for it. I can have them pay for my service, but the service still shows against my assets and the records that are at my customer shop. Okay, and of course, shipping, any service zones, and however you're going to be invoiced. This one happens to be prepaid. And if it is, you could do things in here. Like I said, I can look at my lines. I can lock this when it's done. At the same time, I can also go through and make this contract and actually print the invoice. So I can send them an invoice immediately right out of that quote as it gets converted to an order, or to a solid contract, I should say. Here's some service contracts I've got in here already that are signed and prepaid on some of these. Here's a one that's good from April for a year. This one is locked. So if I try to change, I don't know, I'll try to change a date in here. Let's say I was going to say 4/19. And it's going to tell me right away, you got an error in here, go back. This thing is locked. You can't change the locked contract. If I have authority, I certainly could. So I'm going to go revert. And if I came in here to actions, I can open the contract back up again if I have authority, and make a change to it. Off to the side are your insights about this customer. Here is not only their number, but here is their service invoices outstanding, $165. Here's their orders that they placed of $360,000 so far, payment terms and codes. And again, you can fold those up, or you can keep them open. If you want to close them, you just hit this little circle on the side. But it's a good way to give you a quick reminder what's going on with this customer at a time with their contract. Okay, not wasting more time on that. Let's go back out here. And I've actually got, let's look at my service orders. Now, I don't need a service contract to do service work. I could go right in and I could start a service order. I can also do just a service quote. Somebody just calls, bring in my car in, how much do you think it'll be? You can do that. Or, hey, can you look at my monitor for me? So I've got a one that's pending in here from John Haddock Insurance that I'm waiting for. It's a low priority. They need to get back to me. Here's one that's a service order with new concepts. I can look at that one. It says it's in process. It's assigned to the only user on the system right now is admin, who is me. So it was assigned to me from our New York office, and it's in process. If I look further down, here are the lines, and what I've already entered in here on my lines is I think I found the fault area code, and you said codes for where the problem is. I just said mine was general. The symptom that was reported was other conditions like noise. This is power light was flashing on the server. Again, you make these codes up yourself. And the fault code was the test and control in this case. No, it wasn't. It was really, yeah, it was. It was the test and control in this case. And the way we resolved it after we did that was we did a software upgrade for that particular server so the power light would stop flashing. So again, you put these codes through because it helps in your reporting. You want to know where your cost is, where you're making your profit. We had a 1 hour response time on this. We did not give out a loaner. If we did, we could have substituted for one of these items. It would have substituted for this particular power service. Also, had I serviced this more than once, it would have already showed me previous services. Hey, what did we do on this the last time we were out here? Isn't that the question that always comes up? Okay, what did the guy do last time he was here? And everybody's fumbling around for paper, nobody remembers, and trying to find the guy, and he's in another county. Okay, that being said, there's reports every step of the way through here. And as I go through that, let's go to dispatch. So down below here, I'll have admin site. You'll see I have a dispatch board. This is going to tell me what I'm working on or what's coming up. I've got orders I'm working on in here, and I've got this one for Deerfield Graphics down below. So far, I've only got an allocation of one. What that means is I've got one person who's got some hours assigned to this right now. And if I looked at that one, I go to my, I can actually go to actions and actually show it to you. So we can actually print the service order. For this one, I'll preview it. So you can see what one kind of looks like. Of course, you'll make it your own. You'll put your own graphics and pieces on it. And reports can come out in PDF, Word, or Excel, or right to your printer. It's up to you. And in this one, for example, I'll go to my action, navigating, and in planning, I want to take what the resource allocation is for this one. And this is a Dell server, and the person on it is, of course, James Bond. He would be the best one to check on the server for us. And he was going to be allocated on the 10th for 2 hours. If there were more people involved that were going to be required for this, you can keep adding resources as need be, again, from the dispatch board. The dispatch board can also be automatically updated through resource allocations by saying who's available when, and it will even make some suggestions in the filtering as to what you want to work on, as you can see from above. Again, there's a lot to cover here. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Also on those service orders, I may have, this is where I set up my loaners. Everything isn't the loaner. I set items up that I can loan out. We want to isolate those. A lot of systems I noticed just say, oh, go back to inventory and grab one. And they try to set up a warehouse or some different area. You really need to be specific about what is a loaner and what isn't. Those are the ones you want to track. Otherwise, people tend to keep a loaner and send you back their old one when you really are starting to track that particular serial number. All right, so that's how loaners would set up in here. And one other item I thought would be extremely important for you too. Let's see if I can find it now. It's said it was going to be out there, is order planning. We touched on that earlier. Order planning, this is where one integrated system couldn't be more important. If I look up here, it says show demand as, all demand. But you'll notice this all demand spans the entire system. This is what makes service so significant. I've got production, meaning I could be assembling something. If you ever took apart a wheel on a car, you've got to assemble bearings in that thing. You've got to put the brakes together. Maybe, you've got to realign a part of maybe what goes on the axle. So that could be production for you. It could be sales demand. What has somebody been ordering in parts from this customer or service? They need more help. I've got a big project, a job going with them that could involve, by the way, this does integrate with the job cost side, of course, where I may have 25 different service orders all servicing a particular job cost, like a project. Very important. And of course, job demand and assembly demand. Assembly demand is when you're in inventory making kits. That's what we call kits a lot of times, right? So I've got real manufacturing through assembly, jobs, service, and sales demand can all be brought together under one order planning board. And of course, my actions are make the orders. I can be particular. I can say, I just want to make certain ones. Get me this one and go get me that one. And here's what I need to do. I got to purchase these. If it were something else like make, it would show me that as well. It would also tell me if substitutes exist. Hey, you know what? I don't have this one, but you think you could use this one? Hey, that's right. I guess I could. And then you could identify that substitute item if somebody's out on the site working on that item. Again, I thought order plan is a good place to show you how this all kind of comes together. And eventually you put in your time, you complete a task, standard stuff like you probably saw or will see in the job cost presentation as well. And you bill according to however the contract was established. You want to see a profit, there are profit reports in the system. You can also make as many as you want of your own. And on the service side, you can see where your resource usages are and any items that are out of warranty. It's always good to see those if an item's out of warranty. Maybe you want to go sell a warranty SLA package to that customer. Okay, having said that, I think we're at our allotted time and open for questions. Is that correct, Amber?
Yeah, we ran a little bit over, but I think these questions will be not too complicated, so we'll just go ahead and cover them. And if anybody,
please only give me the easy ones because those complicated.
Okay. One question is, can you enter a timesheet against a service call?
Absolutely, yes, you can.
All right. Oh, cool. That was easy. Does it have the ability to calculate your deferred revenue on service contracts?
It does. You have to set up deferred revenue, of course. But yes, you can. You can do deferred revenue off contracts.
All right, awesome. And the last question is just, can you track your performance against a service level agreement?
Well, that is the key to this, and yes, you can. And your service level agreements, when you set those up as contracts, if you will, you actually can categorize, we didn't show you that, but you can categorize those, and then your entire process is tracked according to right to the last paper clip you issued that you want to record. Again, it's all about what you want to record and what you'll have the field people record. And one thing I didn't mention, I'd leave you with, is these things called standard service codes. A lot of companies have gone to this more now, where they're saying, if you're going out to fix that server or fix that wheel on the car, you've got the wheel repair service code to go with you. And it lists out, like a checklist, everything that you need to do to complete that service. And if you don't do it, you still have to check it and say didn't do it. Now, that's important to give you standardization and a way to record back exactly what services you were using and which ones you weren't. So when you want to measure your next year's service level agreement or how you're going to tweak it to make sure you make a profit and don't give away services that you're never going to use, that's the way people have been going to these standard service codes. Again, we'll have more webinars in the future that are going to go deeper into each one of these issues. This first series we're running is just to get you introduced into the product. So stay tuned for those if you're interested.